When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel. Looking for good ideas for life? You are far from good hands. If you think the listener is always right, you are far from the right place. Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, a rebel by choice. If you want a host that floats between love and madness, then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
What up? Excuse me while I whip this out. Oh, gnarly! Say what again? Say what again? I dare you. I double dare you, motherfucker. Say what one more goddamn time.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes. And good evening, friends.
Not all football helmets are created equal. Zenith, the industry leader in protective technology, is the only helmet in the game with adaptive head protection featuring a shock suspension system that can move independently from the helmet shell. Headquartered and developed in Detroit, Zenith is committed to player safety and revolutionary innovation. Zenith is proud to protect athletes at every level from Pee-wee to the pros. Learn more about the Zenith difference at zenith.com. That's Xenith.com.
Are you annoyingly even keel? E-methamine could be right for you.
I have a disease, alright? I need help!
E-methamine lets you get gagged up on whoop chicken parts without yellowing one's teeth.
Yeah!
Contact your doctor today if you experience the following.
Oh my God!
Increases in blood flow, boost in testosterone, ending of erectile dysfunction.
You're naughty!
This medicine is made for extreme cases of being even keel or having extreme depression.
Oh, come on!
Side effects include fits of rage, acne, bleeding in folks around you, whooping cough, hallucinations, comas, trouble swallowing, decrease in semen, increasing amounts of selling yourself, amnesia, night terrors, higher mortgage rates, and increased sensations in not having suicidal urges.
Oh my.
Hi everybody, this is good old JR Jim Ross, the author of Slobber Knocker, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio. Damn right you are.
Magazine, on IGN, Sports Illustrated. You can follow them at JRob and Steele on Twitter. Jon Robinson, Creating a Mania. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, no, you're welcome. Well, first and foremost, I want to ask, concept for Creating the Mania, because obviously it's a collaboration between ECW Press and WWE. So what can you tell us about this project?
It's incredible. It's, I got hit up by WWE and ECW Press. They said, oh, we have this idea. We want to do like a behind-the-scenes, backstage look, all access of the making and creation of the spectacle known as WrestleMania. And at first I was like, man, that sounds amazing. I would love to write it. But to be honest, I was really skeptical that I would get the access that they promised. It was one of those things where if, I'm trying to write a behind-the-scenes look at WrestleMania, but they don't give me, the proper interviews or, I can't talk to the creative team or the business side, I thought the book could, be a huge failure. I was like, I don't want to promise something like, I don't want the back of the book to be like, hey, backstage access to, a 1 year look at the creating of WrestleMania. And then you look inside and you're like, this is a fluff piece. So I really was like, hey, this is who I want to talk to. I gave him a list of, over 50 names. I said, I want to talk to the creative team, obviously. I want to talk to the superstars involved. I want to talk to the business end. I even said, hey, I want to talk to the mayor of New Orleans. I was like, I want to talk to anyone that is going into this. And WWE was like, yeah, let's do it. And I couldn't believe, I started doing these interviews, and it's actually pretty funny because I'd ask questions. I remember talking to Jinder Mahal, and I asked him about, the Andre the Giant Battle Royal and, Rob Gronkowski, and he started answering a certain way, and then he stopped, and he goes, oh, wait, so do you want the real answer, or am I talking in character? And I was like, no, I want the real answer, and, same with talking to, like, Road Dogg, who's now, the head of creative for SmackDown. He stopped a couple times and was like, am I going to get fired for this? Am I supposed to be saying this? Like, it doesn't seem right. Like, I grew up in an age where we didn't talk about this stuff. And Road Dogg actually stopped and asked someone from WWE who gave him assurance and was like, no, we want you to tell the truth. So I think the execution, hopefully what people read is the truth, the 1 year kind of build up and behind the scenes making of what went into creating WrestleMania, from the superstars perspective, from storylines, from creative, from the business end, even a fan who attended WrestleMania. And, I think, the feedback I've heard has been overwhelmingly positive so far. Everyone from fans of WWE to even the superstars like Cesaro the other day reached out and was like, great book. It's amazing to hear the feedback.
Well, I want to step back to something in your answer there, was when you said, I'd like to talk to X, Y, and Z and gave them your potential list. Was there anybody they said we won't allow you to talk to?
It was interesting. So it wasn't necessarily like I wasn't allowed, but sometimes, like the mayor of New Orleans, like, I put in a request and they never got back to me. John Cena, I think because of how the storyline went with The Undertaker, and it's something that you read in the book, like, that match was actually up in the air for a while. Like, they were talking about, I asked Road Dogg, and I asked the head of creative for Raw, and they were both like, man, that's above my pay grade. But as far as I know, The Undertaker's not going to be there, or he might be there. And so they were trying to figure out alternative plans for Cena, and, they're talking about maybe bringing Rey Mysterio in for a one-off. There are other kind of dominoes that fell and affected the card. Like, I had talked to Jason Jordan, then he was injured, and there was supposed to be like a Kurt Angle versus Jason Jordan match. So maybe if Angle's fighting Jordan, maybe Cena would have slotted with Rousey. Like, we just don't know, what could have happened. There were like a lot of... It
was just working with the information they had.
Yeah, exactly. So I never, like they were like, they put in the request for Cena, and then it's like, oh, well, there's nothing to really talk to him about because he doesn't know what the match is. And then by the time WrestleMania happened, then they were getting, he went to go film a movie, and, it's just one of those things, like the timing didn't work out where I never talked to John. Another guy that I wanted to talk to was Dolph Ziggler. I put in the request, things were going on with his contract, and that was another weird case where, he won the U.S. title, then he vacated it, then he disappeared, and then he came back. And, in the book, they talk about there was a chance if Daniel Bryan didn't come back, it was going to be Shane McMahon and Dolph Ziggler against Owens and Zayn, which has been interesting. But, Dolph went from maybe getting, a pretty good match, high up on the card to dropping into the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. And so because he went into the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, I never really ended up talking to him. Like, I think I would have ended up talking to him if he was in the tag team match or if he had a singles match. I still wanted to talk to him because I thought it would have been interesting just to hear his perspective of like what he knew about, you know, how he might tag with Shane or how the storyline was going. And I wanted to hear his perspective of the U.S. title and everything that happened with that. And, you know, for whatever reason, I never got to talk to him. Obviously, The Undertaker's another one I put in request, but he just doesn't do interviews for books like this. You know, he just won't break character. And I understand. I mean, he's a legend, and same with the Cena situation. I mean, it's hard when they're not even sure if he's going to be there. So,
you know, do what they're going to do. But, you know, you actually answered two of my questions within what I was going to touch on, because obviously you seemed very fascinated with learning about what some folks, and you see it in the book, Creating the Mania, you see what some people had expectations for to what actually went down when the show went on.
Oh, yeah, I'm totally fascinated because I've been a fan, you know, almost my entire life. Like, I remember, you know, watching WrestleMania 2 was pretty much my first, you know, one I watched at home. And I've been hooked ever since, right? So, you know, thanks to the British Bulldogs and, you know, here I am today. But, so because I'm a fan, I have the same questions that everybody else does. You know, I'm like, everything from the storylines to why certain people get pushed to, you know, I talked to the television director and asked him about the camera cuts. Like, why do you do this? You know, like, I have the same questions, concerns that, you know, the average fan has. I just have a lot better access, I guess. And so I get to ask the questions and try to provide the answers to the people.
Well, as far as that process there, because that was actually something on my list here, obviously you mentioned not only there but in other interviews that there's topics fans usually talk about, whether it's the smarts or the people online or whatever the case may be, deciphering between the topics that the average fan's talking about to what you want to address for the book. How do you decipher that?
You know, I think they're one and the same. You know, I'm trying to get to the bottom of how, you know, WrestleMania came about, and a lot of the questions people have, like, why does Roman get pushed? You know, what happened with Braun Strowman? You know, why are, like, the Usos never in WrestleMania? Like, those are all questions that, you know, I've had for years as well, or, you know, I've had while developing this book. So I think, you know, as long as it fit in the narrative of the story, you know, it's one of those things I want to address and put in the book. So, you know, I think, like, being a fan myself, I have these same questions. I thought, like, this could be a cool book in terms of answering a lot of those questions from WWE's perspective. So since I have the access, I'm going to ask them and try to incorporate it in the book.
Well, you obviously have been watching since a youngster. And how did you introduce the product to your children? Because I think I saw a couple of spots where your children are older, but they enjoy the product. So how was it something they found on their own, or did you introduce it to them?
Oh, you know, it's funny. So, yeah, my daughter's 13, my son's 17, and my daughter loves, like, Sasha Banks. And so it's actually one of the funny things that happened is I was talking to Sasha on the phone, and my daughter came home from school, and so I put Sasha on speakerphone, and my daughter's like, I recognize that voice. Like, you know, like she comes in the room, she's like, you know, mouths like, who are you talking to? And then Sasha was like, hi, Caroline, how's it going? You know, and it was hilarious to see, like, my daughter's face, and it was cool with Sasha to talk to her, you know, like, you know, it's like a hero moment. You know, I wish we could have been there in person. But I had told Sasha earlier how my daughter loves her. And then so when she came home, she was like, "Oh yeah, I'll talk to her." It's just kind of funny. It was cool with Sasha. But to answer your question, I think it's one of those things like I would be watching and, my kids just got interested and we went to a live event. And, when you go to a live event, it's such a fun experience and it kind of sucks you in with the energy and, the crowd. And, especially in the Bay Area, I live in San Francisco, so, going to an event in San Jose, out in Oakland, they usually have good crowds. And it's fun to see their reactions, because as kids, like, my daughter and her friends, it's interesting because, they love the Shield. Like, one of her friends, like, loves Roman Reigns. So it's interesting, like, to look at it from different perspectives, especially, like, watching, like, the build-up to WrestleMania. I might think, like, oh, man, that match is going to be lame. And then she'll be like, oh, can you believe it? Like, that's going to be awesome. So it reminds me that, like, the WWE creative, man, they have a very, like, huge net of what they're casting out there. And, they're trying to appeal to so many different people. And sometimes, I think people complain, but it might not necessarily be being written for them. Like some of the angles are being written for, younger people or teenagers. Like, I think the Braun Strowman Nicholas versus the Bar is the perfect example. Like, to me, I would have loved to seen the Bar in a tag team match against the actual tag team. And, they're one of my favorite teams. I love Cesaro, I love Sheamus as singles, but as a team, I just think they're great. And, I was like, they're going to go against Braun and a kid. Like, it's kind of funny, but then it's like, then they lose after all that. It seemed like a waste. But to my daughter and her friends, they thought it was amazing that this kid was, that Braun just picked a kid out of the stands. And, like, they were like, oh, can you imagine if that was me? Like, I would have kicked Cesaro in the teeth again,
Yeah.
And I saw it from a completely different perspective. Like, that makes sense. Like, wow, like, they talked about that moment, for a month. Like, oh, can you believe Braun chose a kid? Like, that would have been amazing if it was me. And it made a lot more sense in my mind than me just being like the old guy, like going, I wish the Bar got more respect,
Yeah. But being that you are the father of a teenage daughter, what's the woman's revolution like scene for you as a father's perspective?
Oh, man, it's really amazing to me. Like, I think the evolution from, what we've got in, like, the Attitude Era and the way the women were presented, to today where, it kind of went from, I don't know, like sex objects to athletes and competitors. And that doesn't mean that they're not, still beautiful and sexy, because they are. I think it's just the way they're presented now as athletes. And, man, these women are amazing, and they go on and steal the show. And I love seeing it, and I love seeing, like, my daughter's reaction to these women. Like I said, she loves Sasha Banks and, Charlotte Flair. And, to see her watching these matches and, rooting for Becky and, she sees them as competitors and on the same level as and she sees these women now on the same level as the male competitors. And I think that's the big difference. Because there were great matches in the Attitude Era. I mean, Trish Stratus was amazing. Trish and Mickie James. Yeah, Trish and Mickie James had one of the hottest feuds, of the time. But, like, now to see, like, all the women, like, presented kind of on the same level, and seeing it through my daughter's eyes, it's a really great step forward, and I hope they keep making these strides. And, in the book, we talk about possible WrestleMania matches coming up, and I think, Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair match could main event WrestleMania.
That's not far from their wheelhouse when you think about it.
Nah, yeah. And, I think, if they present that match and they have the right, build up, I mean, I could see that across, ESPN to the Today Show, people talking about Ronda Rousey, but then Charlotte Flair with this family history that everybody knows Ric Flair. I think this could be presented as the marquee match, just a huge thing going forward. And, I would love to see it happen where, women main event WrestleMania.
Definitely. Final question for you. And obviously, I'll use your daughter as an example because knowing she's 13, she wouldn't be aware of some guy named Dwayne Johnson getting beat in a video game contest to her father many moons ago. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, she knows all about it, but just because, her dad's stories. But, back in the day when I was in college, I was actually writing for a video game magazine called Game Pro, which was like the largest video game magazine in the world, and it just happened to be like down the street from where I lived, and I was a creative writing major, and I got the job. And while I was there, I pitched them a cover story on the WWF video game back in the day. And, that was back in the day where WWF was losing the ratings battle to WCW. So when we went to WWE and they were like, oh, who do you want to interview? I was like, oh, I want to talk to Stone Cold, Triple H, Chyna, Mankind, and this guy, The Rock. I just thought The Rock was really funny. He was Rocky Maivia. He just kind of entered the nation. And, I go backstage, and they're all in this room, and there's video games set up, and I got to interview all of them. I spent, a couple hours back there with everybody. They gave me so much time, and we ended up doing a cover story. It was the first cover The Rock was ever on, which is kind of funny. About a month later, I get a phone call. I thought that was like a dream come true. I spent all this time with all these guys. I thought that might be like my only chance to ever talk to a wrestler ever. And a month later, I get a phone call, and it's like, they called me Johnny Ballgame back then because that was my name in Game Pro. And it was like, Johnny Ballgame, it's The Rock. It's like, what? And Rock called me up, and he's like, hey, we're coming to, I think they were going to the Cow Palace back then. And he was like, hey, we're coming to the Bay Area. You want to hang out? And I was like, yeah, of course. So I'd bring video games and like him, and they introduced me to like D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry and Christian and Edge and all these guys who were kind of the younger guys in the locker room, and they were all big into video games. And so whenever they came to town, I'd go, I'd play video games and hang out with these guys, and it was pretty crazy. And what was cool is The Rock would go, hey, you want something to eat? Let's go to catering, and then we'd see different wrestlers backstage, and he'd introduce like, hey, this is my boy Johnny Ballgame. I remember meeting the Undertaker, and the Undertaker was like, oh, dead men don't play video games.
He's not a guy I could see on his downtime,
Yeah, but because The Rock went around and introduced me as like his friend or his boy or however he phrased it, I was looked at a lot differently than like, oh, this is some media guy or this is some fan or whoever, right? So, it's kind of funny then, next time they'd come to town, D'Lo would be like, hey, let's play some games. He'd come to my apartment. We'd play video games in my apartment. I got to know these guys as like friends, and so I think that really helped me in the long run of doing books later on for WWE and talking to these guys for ESPN. I think, luckily because I had that access back then, and I still know a lot of people, they treat me a little differently than like the average guy who goes in to talk to them. And that's really helped me, even if I kick The Rock's ass at Madden.
Well, the book is Creating a Mania, an inside look at WrestleMania 34. ECW Press, Amazon.com, I mean, it's there. John, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thinking your day is bad and really looking to make it worse? Why not try downloading this new classic set of music that will be dropping so far off the charts there's bound to be injuries. Now that's what I call depressing. It's gonna make those who are even close to having the slightest glimmer of hope want to jump off the highest of planks. For those that are getting Now That's What I Call Depressing, you'll be getting that song that reminds you of that relationship with those cougars, Wrinkled Ladies. For those who weren't really into cougars, but those who had that special friend whilst in Cell Block 2B, we got for you this clusterfuck that will put you in therapy for years to come. With cheeks wide open. Who the fuck writes this shit? Oh hell, we're still recording this commercial.
Always with you what cannot be done.
Those that'd rather have it out than in. This loaded hit will be dropping soon, farthing in the USA. For those who place their order by calling or ordering online, the next 100 folks will receive their choice of either a noose of good quality that won't snap, an installation of a new outlet next to your bathtub so you can now blow dry your hair in a full tub. Or the choice of the right gang to just beat the fuck out of you. Call us today at 1-800-FUCK-THIS.
With over 30 years of experience and a superb reputation for being a detail-oriented company, Lacey Cleaning has some of the highest work standards in the cleaning business.
That's the fact, Jack!
Whether it's carpet cleaning, tile, grout cleaning, new construction cleanup, rental turnovers, vent and duct cleaning, odor elimination, office and or business cleaning, power washing, residential cleaning, you name it, they do it. Check them out. To contact them today, laceycleaning@gmail.com or call them at 609-709-8536.
That's what I'm talking about. I think I'm cute. I know I'm sexy.
Hey, this is Shawn Michaels, and you are listening to Crazy Train Radio.